Hi guys, Danielle here from Gettestobsessed.com, and today I want to talk to you about phrasal verbs. Specifically, I want to explain why phrasal verbs are so important for the TOEFL. If you've planned to memorize a list of vocabulary words in order to prep for test day, but you don't have phrasal verbs included on that list, I think you're missing out, and likely you're leaving some points on the table. So let's get right into it. Most students overlook the importance of phrasal verbs because phrasal verbs are not considered academic language. Phrasal verbs are a series of words made up of a main verb and a preposition. Think words that express relationships like in, at, of, or an adverb, a word that describes an adjective, verb, or another adverb. Think words that usually end in ly, or a combination of both. Being concise is typically considered a hallmark of strong writing. In other words, you should always use one word instead of three if just one word would suffice. Because by definition, phrasal verbs are 2 or 3 word phrases, they don't usually make it into formal writing, and that's why you're not going to see it in many reading passages. The TOEFL is unlike other standardized tests like the SAT or GRE in that there are listening and speaking sections. As a result, there is real and relevant uses for phrasal verbs. But if you're studying a generic list of standardized test vocabulary, you won't find those words there as they aren't academic, nor are they esoteric. Essentially, native speakers don't need to study phrasal verbs, as they're such a normal part of daily interactions. In fact, native speakers draw upon these without even thinking about that. If you ask the average native speaker what a phrasal verb is, they'll probably be completely clueless, but their response might include a few phrasal verbs to explain to you that they just don't know. This is also the exact reason why phrasal verbs are so popular on the TOEFL. They're an ordinary part of daily interaction. Remember, the TOEFL is designed to mimic typical interactions, and phrasal verbs certainly qualify. On the speaking section of the TOEFL, you'll want to utilize phrasal verbs to help you sound more natural. While using some stronger, more formal vocabulary is certainly a good plan, phrasal verbs will sound appropriate in terms of register to native speakers, so you want to make sure they're incorporated in your response. On the listening section, you'll hear both students and professors using phrasals in conversations and in lectures. While a professor might not actually use phrasal verbs in a formal paper that's going to be published in a journal or a textbook, even professors use them while delivering lectures to a class. It isn't enough to just be able to hear and detect the phrasal verb. Knowing the meaning is imperative when you consider the role paraphrasing plays on the TOEFL. Though the professor may have used a phrasal verb, the correctly paraphrased answer might use the academic word instead. Furthermore, when writing your integrated essays, you can change the phrasal verb used by the professor in the listening part of the integrated essay prompt and put it into more formal language when you're composing your own essay. Students mistakenly think that they can figure out the meaning of phrasal verbs from context, but often this could not be further from the truth. Phrasal verbs are figurative by nature. They're idiomatic, so looking into their components that make up the phrasal verb won't necessarily help you determine the meaning of the larger phrase. Because they usually can't be pieced together from knowing the smaller words that make up the phrase, memorization becomes the only option. So if phrasal verbs are so important, why don't more students spend the time to study them? Besides being absent from most test prep lists, phrasal verbs present a big challenge for students for 3 main reasons. First, there are many of them. There are easily over 100 phrasals, so even students who recognize the importance might not know where to start. Second, even when you're familiar with them, they might be difficult to catch. English is a stress-timed language, and that means that the natural pattern of speech means those smaller prepositions often attach themselves to the prior verb, making it easy to miss them when you're listening. Last, but certainly not least, small changes can make a big difference in meaning when it comes to phrasal verbs. Think about this example. If you have something like turn up and turn down, these seem to be opposites. However, the phrasal turn up means to find, like, I hope that your keys turn up soon. Turn down, on the other hand, doesn't mean to lose. Instead, it means to reject. He offered to help me, but I turned him down, for example. If you try to hack the list in an attempt to reduce the amount of words you need to know, you can't simply use the opposites to determine meanings of these tricky sets of words. Just like in the prior example, there are exceptions to the rule, but more times than not, phrasal verbs that share the same main verb have little to do with one another. Despite these obstacles, learning how to use phrasal verbs is a worthwhile use of your time. Unlike those sometimes obscure academic words typical of standard test prep lists, these words will continue to turn up in daily English interactions for years to come. Use the TOEFL as motivation to become more comfortable with this list of words, but realize that their utilization extends far beyond test day. So this brings us to the end of our discussion on why you should learn phrasal verbs, but hopefully it's far from the last time that you're thinking about them. If you like this video, please be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming video tutorials on, you guessed it, phrasal verbs. While you're at it, go ahead and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Gettestobsessed so you don't miss any of those Phrasal Fridays where I give you some more practice and information on that long list of phrasal verbs. I've also got a special download just for you that goes over the 25 most common phrasals you'll need for the TOEFL. Go ahead and grab that in the description box below. Until next time, bye.